After the death of her husband, Irene of Athens seized power in Byzantium, or the Eastern Roman Empire, although with some controversy. Some claim that the Church, not recognizing her as a legitimate empress because she was a woman, instead crowned Charlemagne as the Emperor of Rome. It is reported that Irene, fearing the rise of the Western Roman Empire, sought to bring them in allegiance by marrying Charlemagne. She was therefore replaced by one of her former ministers, Nikephoros. Irene had witnessed the Islamic Empire, and understanding the reality of the Eastern Roman Empire's geopolitical position, agreed to pay Haroon ar-Rasheed a tribute in order to keep peace. Nikephoros naively sought to undo this treaty.
Nikephoros wrote to al-Rasheed, "From Nikephoros, king of Rome, to Haroon, king of the Arabs.
To proceed, the empress that ruled before me placed you in the station of a rock, and placed herself in the status of a pawn. So she sent you from her money what you did not deserve, and in reality you should have paid tribute to her. That is because of the weakness of the women and their idiocy. If you read this letter, then return what you were given from that wealth, and if you don't comply, then the sword will come between you and me."
When Haroon ar-Rasheed read his letter, he became enraged, to the point that no one could even look at him or address him, as those who were seated with him were overcome with fear. Then he requested a pen, and he wrote on the back of the letter, "In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. From Haroon, leader of the Muslims, to Nikephoros, the dog of the Romans. I have read your letter, you son of a disbelieving woman. My answer is something that you will not hear, but you will see for yourself. Peace." Then he quickly gathered his army, and then marched until he reached the gates of Heraclea. He conquered it and took the king's daughter, and took much of its wealth. He destroyed and burned it down. Nikephoros requested an agreement that included an amount that was paid every year, and al-Rasheed accepted that. When he returned from his conquest and calmed himself down, the disbeliever broke the agreement and betrayed the covenant. It was severely cold that winter, so no one was able to go back and fight him, and al-Rasheed was informed that they had feared that they would be affected by the cold, to wait until the winter had subsided.
We can give some more context to what we just heard. Nikephoros addresses Haroon ar-Rasheed as King of the Arab. This may not stand out to us today, but we should know that, firstly, the Muslim rulers never addressed themselves as kings of the Arab. This is because nationalism was not an important concept to them. For the Muslim rulers and for the Arab rulers at that time, religion took precedence, and this is why amongst the Muslims you find the use of the title Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is the term that would be used to address the Muslim king. Amir al-Mu'mineen meaning leader of the believers. And this title was true regardless of the technical classification that we might use today. Whether that person was a caliph, emperor, king, or sultan, or however a person may be titled, the term that was used to address them was Amir al-Mu'mineen. And this is something that goes back to the time of the Rashidun. Secondly, we should note that by the time of Haroon ar-Rasheed, the Muslims had conquered from Persia to India in the east, as well as Iraq to the Caucasus regions up in the northeast, Sham in the north, Egypt all the way to Morocco, and even Andalus in the west, or Spain. None of those regions at that time were exclusively Arab or Arab at all. In fact, till today, some of those regions are not Arab. So, in a subtle way, Nikephoros tried to play down the importance of Haroon and the Muslim Empire. Another point to bring up is Haroon ar-Rasheed's response. In Haroon ar-Rasheed's response, he addresses Nikephoros as dog of the Romans, and at first glance this might seem as though he's just retorting with a straightforward insult. However, it is important to note that Nikephoros was reportedly of Ghassanid lineage, meaning that he was in fact of Arab descent. The term dog of Rome, therefore, alludes to him being a sellout and a lowly servant of a foreign people. This is why he did not say, for example, the Roman dog, but rather the dog of Rome. It's also interesting to note that if Nikephoros was indeed a Ghassanid, then there was actually an Arab emperor of Rome.
After that winter had passed, Haroon ar-Rasheed sent his army back to fight the Byzantines. He had conquered Hergla in the Byzantine lands, which is in the Konya region of modern-day Turkey. Nikephoros resumed the payment of the Jizya. Nikephoros wrote to Haroon ar-Rasheed,
To the servant of God, Haroon, the leader of the believers, from Nikephoros, the king of Rome. Peace be unto you. To proceed, O king, I have a need that will not harm you in regards to your religion or your worldly life. It's a simple request that you provide for my son, the slave girl from the women of Hergla that my son sought engagement. If you see fit to fulfill my need, then please do so, and may peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.
Along with the letter that was sent in the hands of two of his most noble priests, Nikephoros had included some gifts, including perfumes and a marquee. Ar-Rasheed ordered his men to bring in the slave girl. She was beautified and made to sit on a couch that was in the tent that the two priests were occupying. The slave girl was given to the two priests of Nikephoros along with everything that was in the tent, including the jars and the provisions that were there. He had also sent what Nikephoros had asked for, some perfume, but he had included some dates, raisins, khabis, a traditional sweet, and some medicinal herbs. All of that was given to Haroon ar-Rasheed's messenger to give to Nikephoros. In return, Nikephoros gave him some dirhams, the value of which in the Islamic currency was 50,000 dirhams. He also gave him 100 embroidered garments, 200 gold-decorated garments, 12 goats, 4 hunting dogs, and 3 workhorses. Nikephoros had a condition that Haroon ar-Rasheed would not destroy or attack his trade caravans or the fortress of Sinan. In turn, Haroon ar-Rasheed placed a condition that Nikephoros would not reside or occupy Hergla, and that he would pay 300,000 dinars. After this incident, the famous Arab poet Abul-Attahiyah wrote a poem about Haroon ar-Rasheed. In it he says,
إمام الهدى أصبحت للدين معنيا
أصبحت تسقي كل مستمطر ريا لك اسمان شقا من رشادي ومن هدى فأنت الذي تدعى رشيدا ومهديا
إذا ما سخطت الشيء كان مسخطا
وإن ترضى شيئا كان في الناس مرضيا بسطت لنا شرقا وغربا يد العلا فأوسعت شرقيا وأوسعت غربيا ووشيت وجه الأرض بالجود والندى فأصبح وجه الأرض بالجود موشيا
وأنت أمير المؤمنين فتى التقى
نشرت في الإحسان ما كان مطويا تحليت للدنيا وللدين بالرضا فأصبح نقفور لهارون ذميا